welcome you to part 4 of our mentorship series for NYACP. This session this evening is going to be focused on preparing for step 1 and step 2, and it's something that we put together as part of the NYACP Medical Student Committee. My name is Erin Russell. I'm a third-year medical student at Hackensack Meridian School of Medicine and a longtime resident of Manhattan and Brooklyn. And if you want to go to the next slide, I am going to introduce the rest of our panel. First, we are honored to have Dr. Rebecca Keller with us today. She's a professor of cardiovascular science and assistant dean of medical education at Albany Medical College. So thank you, Dr. Keller, for being here with us this evening. We have Chloe Krugel, who is a fourth-year medical student at Albany Medical College, pursuing internal medicine. Thank you, Chloe K, for being here with us. And we also have another Chloe Wong, who's also a fourth-year medical student at Albany Medical College. Chloe Wong is also applying to internal medicine, and appreciate her being here. We have Rachel Shernett, fourth-year medical student at SUNY Upstate in the combined MD MPH program, who is one of our panelists. And we also have Vida Binkauskas, who's a fourth-year medical student at Hackensack Meridian School of Medicine, who is also with us tonight. So thank you all for being here. I also have a co-moderator, Sharman Shukla, if you want to say hi, Sharman.
Hey guys, my name is Sharman, and I'm a fourth-year student at St. George's University, but I'm doing my rotations in New York City. Happy to be here, and I'm moderating with Erin.
Amazing. So we're going to go back and forth a little bit in terms of throwing questions out to everyone. And as a preview to everyone here on the call, I just want to mention a few things about some upcoming events that we have going on at NYACP. April 9th, we have Her Health, Her Story, Her Power, Raising Maternal Health Awareness and Empowering Women of Color is something that we have coming up. And then there are a number of things that are available in terms of opportunities to get involved. We have a really great medical student committee, and we love to involve everyone who wants to participate. And so we encourage everyone who's attending, if you're interested, please go ahead and scan that QR code, let us know, and we'll get you involved. Okay. With that, I'm going to go ahead and kick off a general session. We have a few questions that have come up that are pretty common in terms of things related to step 1 and step 2 prep. Sharman and I are going to go ahead and throw those over to our panel now, and then we'll have some small group breakouts that we'll be able to jump into with specific areas of focus. So for the first large panel session question, I'm going to go ahead and open that up and just ask Dr. Keller to get us started with sharing some general things that we should be considering when we're approaching step 1 study specifically.
So thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's nice to meet you all. So for step 1, some general things is to trust yourself and to believe that you know more than you think you do. It's a common thing that students believe that they don't remember anything from their beginning times at medical school, but it does come back much faster. And then also to concentrate on wellness. Burnout is real with step 1, and it seems that, the common thing for all of us is that the more hours we put in, then the more likely we're going to do better. But, there is research out there that does show that if you give yourself time to concentrate on wellness and to rest, that you actually come back more engaged and you can consolidate the information better. So, work hard, but also concentrate on your wellness and rest times during dedicated.
Amazing. Thank you. And for step 2 specifically, what are some general things that we should consider as we approach step 2 dedicated study? I'll throw that one over to Chloe Wong.
Thank you so much. So for step 2 specifically, I second everything Dr. Keller had said. I think being confident in going into these board exams and taking care of your wellness is extremely important. Obviously, I think when students go into step 2, they feel a little bit more prepared because they have been taking these questions and shelf exams throughout the year. So I think students technically should feel a little bit more confident. But I think overall things to, generally consider is, where you want to be when you start your dedicated. Do you want to be where you're closer to school, or do you want to be at home by family? Whatever helps your mental health, whatever, supports your mental health better. Second is the study materials. Do you want to use the same materials you used for step one, or do you want to change your strategy a little bit? And I guess the third point is study strategy in and of itself. How do you want to allocate your time? Do you feel like you know the material more now that you've been studying the whole year and don't need to dedicate so much to content review and just study the questions? Or do you want to, focus more on content review again? So those are the typical things I would say to consider.
Second question for this webinar is, what are some resources that are available for step study? So I guess we can break this down into step one and step two. Um, the two best resources for these exams. And this question is for Rachel, and then anybody else can answer it after.
Yeah, so there are a few like free resources that you can use. I don't know if those would necessarily be the ones that I would choose in and of themselves to prepare, but things like Melman Medical were really useful for step one. He has, quick sheets for review and also some like practice questions and videos. So that's a good resource. If you're into flashcards, the On King deck, which I'm sure you've all heard of by now, is really good. And also you could get like first aid PDFs online for free. I recommend putting them into like a Good Notes or something like that, where you can have where you can easily use the search function. I feel like that really helped speed up my workflow with studying. So aside from the no cost resources, UWorld and Amboss, I'd say find one like question bank that kind of works for you and your learning style and kind of stick with that. I don't think more is always necessarily better. You don't have to get like all of the like all of the question banks, but UWorld I think is generally considered to be like most similar to the step questions themselves. And then also if you're into Anki, you can download it's like a tool where like an Anki add-on where you can plug in the question codes for questions that you got wrong in UWorld and synchronize that so that you're studying the flashcards associated with the questions that you're getting wrong.
Just to add two things, the Dirty Medicine videos are really good that students use. They're very high yield. And then I just want to do a caution for the Melman. Melman is really good. Our students use that a lot, but just a caution for the questions. He does use questions that come off of the CBSSAs. And so if you study those before you take the CBSSAs, then you may have an inflated score because you've kind of studied for that. So just be cautious about using the questions documents before you take the CBSSAs. That's just a little cautionary tale that I found out with working with students for step one.
That's a great tip, Dr. Keller. Thank you.
I'll also add one more thing for step two. Amboss articles, it's like a separate subscription from Amboss. I think it's only like $30 or something like that. And specifically for the bioethics and biostatistics, I got so many points just from reading all of the articles, and it was super, super helpful for step two.
Next question is for Chloe Krugel. How did you use practice exams or forms for step study?
Yeah, so I'll start with step one. So for step one, I pretty much did UWorld every day. And then once a week, I would use a practice exam to kind of assess where I was at and specifically like what my percent chance of passing was. And for me personally, like I knew that I would be ready to take step one when I was at like high 90% chance of passing on a couple of exams. I know that's kind of the advice that Dr. Keller gives as well. But that was just like kind of a personal comfort thing. And then for step two, I did a little bit of a shorter dedicated, so I think it ended up being 2 practice exams a week. And I think for step two, I didn't really focus on the score. I just kind of used it as like more like reps. Because I think you're studying the whole year, you can kind of get a good sense of how you're going to do based on how you've been doing on your shelf exams. So for me, like the actual score, like my scores were kind of all wishy-washy on the actual forms for step two. But I more so did it to like review content.
I'm just going to chime in again. Sorry, I don't mean to chime in a lot, but one of the things I saw this year, which I totally understand, cost is a big thing with dedicated and with these forms, especially the MBME forms from the for the practice. But a trend we saw this year, particularly at AMC, is that all of the CBSSAs are available as PDFs off of Reddit. And so students were using those, which I think is okay because it does decrease the cost associated, but it does take away the richness of the data that you get from the online form that goes to the insights, and it doesn't break down the different topics, the questions into topics. So it really challenges anyone who's working with a student or for a student to know where their areas for improvement could be. So while it's costly, I do encourage students to take the online forms rather than the PDF forms of the current practice exams, just so that you can get that richness of data. I get that it's expensive, but maybe work with your school financial aid, see if there's a way to get money for the vouchers for the practice exams.
Our fourth question would be, what would a typical day look like during dedicated step study? So everybody has their own thing. Everybody does their own thing every day. So I guess everybody can take turns and we can answer this. I could start if nobody's answering. So I wouldn't give an example of a day. I'd probably give an example of 2 days because that's how I study. So the first day I would just do content review, and that would include a little bit of UWorld or Amboss or whatever. And I would also go through my notes um, after doing that. So I'd wake up, do that, do UWorld, do Amboss, have lunch, take a break, and then go through my content review, go through my notes, and probably add some notes from the UWorld questions I did from the morning, and then chill, go to the gym, and rest. The next day, I would take an exam and I would review that. Um, and that would take me about 2 to 3 hours because I would make notes for each question I got wrong. And I actually saw this Reddit post that explained it really well. So what you do is you write why you got it wrong and what was your thought process when you made that mistake. Did you not read the question, or did you misunderstand it? What was wrong? So that helps with pattern recognition because you see exactly where you go wrong and you can fix that. But that's just how I study.
I can go next. I just pulled up my spreadsheet from my study schedule. Pretty much most days were the same except for two. So I'll go through a typical day. Um, I would wake up. I would typically do like some Anki and a little bit of review, and then I would try to get through two UWorld blocks of 40 in the morning and review both of them. Then have lunch. Then kind of do a similar thing in the afternoon and take a break every day to work out. And then I would have dinner, and then I would typically watch like some sketchy videos on like pharmacology or biochemistry or topics that I needed to review. So that was most of the days. And then the days that I would take a practice exam, obviously that was most of my day. And then there was one day a week when I would go and review like topics. I would keep a list of topics that I was struggling with that kept getting wrong. And once a week, I would take half a day and kind of go through that list and review specific topics, so more like content review. But most of my studying was questions.
Yeah, so my schedule was very similar to Chloe's as well. I would wake up maybe around like 8 o'clock, and I would let me start my day with some questions, maybe like 2 blocks of 40 on UWorld. And I'd take a break for lunch. I would review my questions after. And then my midday, I actually used to go over like sketchy materials, like reviewing antibiotics, and the microbes. Um, and then afternoon, I would do another set of UWorld questions. So I was very, very question heavy. I think it's because I kind of paired my content review with my questions, just to increase efficiency. So I would just do that throughout the week. And then at the very end of my week, I would take a practical exam to see where I was at, and then try to look at my wrong answers and then improve on that for the next week.
Hi everyone. My day also has some overlap with what the other members shared. For step one, typically I'd wake up around like 6 a.m. I'd also do some content review through practice questions for about like 2 to 3 hours. Like it would take me about 2 to 3 hours maybe to do like 20 questions because I'd review them it would take like triple the time to review a question than it would take to do it. Then I would take a bit of a break, go to the gym, come back, eat lunch, do like maybe a block of 40 where I like take it at one time and then maybe sit down and review, go on a run after that as a break. And then typically for step one, I try to do at least like 60 questions a day, max like 100. But it was a lot of like content review through doing the questions. Um, I also found it, I don't know if like anyone else has done this, but I would try to do some practice questions with friends. Like we would either meet up in person or like share each other's screen and like try to figure it out, like read it together, try to on our own see what we would come up with and then discuss. And then it would just make it more fun, more interactive, and less like less boring. So typically for step one, that's what I would do. For step two was mostly just doing redoing the questions that I did during the shelf exams because a lot of it I learned during the rotations I was on.
I'll add to that. I think my days looked pretty similar to what a lot of people are saying, but so I used a lot of like, random question blocks in UWorld, but as time went on, I would copy and paste like the UWorld summary of all of the questions I got wrong and put that into like an Excel spreadsheet. And you could kind of sort which topic and subtopic that you're consistently getting wrong. So I think that helps pick up on certain patterns of things that you're getting wrong, maybe like that you wouldn't have recognized otherwise. And then sometimes like later in the days, I would do blocks of like assorted questions related to like the topics I commonly get wrong. So in Amboss, more so than UWorld, you can really like get down to the nitty-gritty topics of finding those questions that are related to things that you might be having a hard time with and kind of assembling them into like a larger question pool for you to practice with.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. I think we can go into the next question. This one is for Chloe Krugel again. How would you maintain wellness during step study?
For me, like when I think about wellness, I think about kind of four main things. So sleep, nutrition, exercise, and social wellness. So I have like been super diligent throughout all of med school about getting my sleep. I'm the type of person that needs like 9 hours of sleep to be able to function. So for better or for worse, I would make sure like I would get into bed at the same time every night. Really try to focus on getting good sleep. Hopefully I'll be able to continue to do that to an extent in residency. And then I would work out, do some sort of exercise every day, whether it was walking, or, strength or whatever it was, pretty much every single day. And then try to make sure that I had healthy meals. I would do a lot of meal prep. I like planned out my meals ahead of time so that I knew like what groceries I needed and I didn't have to take that long. And then seeing friends and slash family. For step one, I stayed at school, and for step two, I went home and was with family, which I was nervous about because I was worried that it would be distracting, but it ended up actually being really, really awesome. And I set very clear boundaries with my family. But it was really nice to have like that daily social interaction and not have to worry about meals and stuff. So I would say find what works best for you, figure out what your non-negotiables are, and really stick to them.
All right, so next question. What is one piece of advice you would offer to students about entering dedicated study? This question is open to everybody.
Don't compare yourself to other people. I think everyone starts at a different starting point and everyone has different goals and there's so much chatter and everyone's stressed and it's really easy to kind of fall into this trap of like, oh, well, this person's doing more than me or this person's doing this, that's different. Like I would say figure out like what type of learner you are. Use your resources, whether it's mental health resources, whether it's kind of like your school guidance, but don't kind of like, put on your blinders and just really focus on yourself and what's best for you.
I would say don't skip your rest days. I think everybody should take one day off a week to do something that makes you happy and to help de-stress. And I think it's easy in the very beginning of dedicated to just kind of tell yourself that you don't need the rest days because you're feeling more motivated and whatnot. But I think it should be a priority all throughout.
I think my advice would be try not to be your own worst enemy. Especially when you take those practice exams, you get the score back and it's ideally not what you wanted. Try not to let that get you down. I think the mindset that I took on was that, okay, thank God, like I'm getting these questions wrong now and not on the actual exam because I can improve on them. So yeah, try not to get in your head. Like this is all a learning process, and as long as you are diligent and you put in the work, you're going to succeed. And the mistakes is where you learn the most. So be grateful that again you're making mistakes on your practice exams and not on the actual exam, and then you can improve on them.
One thing that I would recommend that's definitely been already talked about is choose, like, make sure you're also choosing yourself, like exercise, sleep, socialize. All of that is so, so important. So definitely do not neglect that. When I first got into my dedicated, like, it was honestly like the best time of med school up until that point. Like I had the time to myself to like structure my schedule and I work very well when I'm left to my own devices. So it worked out really, really well. But like make sure a lot of other on the other side of things, some people just do like questions and like really lock in and like they stop exercising, they stop socializing. So make sure that you are not doing that. Sometimes it gets very stressful and you think that you have very limited time and you want to just do more and more and more, but sometimes that's actually working against you. So prioritize your health.
My advice is to find your person. At Albany Med, a lot of students come see me, but don't wait till last minute. Find your person, whether it be a faculty member or an administrator, someone who knows about the step exams that can help you interpret the data. We're not here to judge, we're here to help students succeed. So find your person.
Amazing. Thank you all for that. One more question before we go into breakouts. And this one is for Chloe Wong. How did you balance content review versus question banks and BMEs? I know we spoke a little bit about this up to this point, but if you have anything to add on that topic, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier, but I really try to balance like efficiency when I'm studying, considering that dedicated is not a very long time. So step one, I really tried to balance content review with question banks by combining the two. So I would just focus again mostly on just doing questions, and UWorld is really great because the explanations, they're very thorough and the pictures and images are also very, very well drawn. Um, so I would focus more on, reading through that, especially the questions that I got wrong, because then I would know that this is the content that was weak for me. So then I would, have a piece of paper. I use my iPad, and I would just write down like a sentence or two important thing about that content that I missed, that made me get the question wrong. So that was kind of how I balanced content review with question banks. And then for step two, I kind of employed the same thought process where I actually leaned less towards like UWorld questions, but more towards like the NBME practice shelf exam that we took. And the NBME explanations, they're also very like thorough as well. So I would, do the same thing. I would just write one or two sentences about the content that, I should remember for next time I see this type of topic again.
To all of our panelists, again, Dr. Keller, thank you for joining us. Rachel, Chloe K, Chloe W, Vita, thank you all for participating, and Charmin, you as well. Thanks for moderating this with me. If anyone has any extra questions, feel free to chime in now, and let us know. Otherwise, we're so glad that you were able to join us tonight, and definitely would love to have you guys continue to be involved in NYACP. So please reach out to us if you are interested in getting more involved.